It's rare to hear Colorado's power players say they failed, but the big-time effort to diversify the state's educators did not work. So now what? Denver Water promises this will be the last time they take western slope water to expand a reservoir outside Boulder.
Where we may have taken a more aggressive, assertive approach in the past, we've taken an extremely collaborative approach.
America enters a so-called pandemic of the unvaccinated. We look at the strain that's causing between neighbors who have made different choices about the vaccine. Your generosity doubled the impact of a nonprofit providing showers and laundry to people living on Denver streets. And if you have anything lavender scented, grab it before we listen to Colorado's good news this Friday.
It is good news because lavender is very calming. It's very beautiful.
Even our critics agree. You can smell this newscast coming. Next. Colorado's education department is giving itself a failing grade for being unable to diversify our teaching workforce. They made that admission today, telling our Anusha Roy why it has been so difficult and what our students are missing out on in the meantime.
The issue is not new.
Some reports from the 1980s that talk about diversifying.
Fast forward to 2021, after at least 5 years of more intensified efforts.
We have 87% of our teachers are considered white. We have about 1% that are considered two or more races. Our largest population of students in Colorado are Hispanic or Latino population. We have 9% of our teachers who are Hispanic or Latino.
The numbers are even lower for Black teachers in Colorado. The Department of Education said they've been trying to reverse the trend.
We've been trying to increase by about 10% over just the last 3 years.
But didn't make it to where they wanted to be for this year.
We're falling about 2% short from that goal, and that was a pretty mild goal.
Students benefit from seeing people that look like themselves in positions of authority.
The state legislature realized the needle wasn't moving enough and any state laws on the books weren't doing the job, so opened the door for a stakeholders group.
We'll have some actionable items that we can convert into state law.
They will also take a closer look at the exam required to become certified as a teacher.
About 35% of African Americans pass the test after multiple times of taking the exam. Roughly about 52% or so of Latinos and 75% pass rate for white teachers. Now, this is all things being equal. All of these people have college education, so they have all completed an undergraduate degree, but yet they're having problems. There seems to be inherent bias within the system.
Teach Colorado, that's working on diversifying teacher candidates, agreed.
Making sure that all of our students receive an equitable education.
We are back. So the one thing that the Department of Education is now taking a look at is their recruitment efforts. They're trying to make sure that they're doing more one-on-ones with people and staying in touch with them. The other part of all of this is, of course, money, Kyle, right? Along with salaries, there's also this look right now for more grants for education as well as scholarships to help people just get through the door and start the process as well.
Apropos that in our story about people who are trying hard but not succeeding, we tried but didn't quite succeed on the technical end. Denver Public Schools has more of a success story to tell than the state overall.
Yeah, so what they told me today was that they've actually been able to increase their diversity in the last couple of years. Every year they've been able to up that number. Now, it doesn't reflect totally when it comes to the student population, but they do seem to be having a little bit more luck. And one of the things that did happen is we've talked about this pipeline, right, of talking to high school kids, staying in touch with them through college, helping them navigate the college and university pipeline, and then getting them into the district. But that also takes a really long time, right, Kyle? So they started that a couple of years ago. It's starting to come to fruition now. But on the flip end, retention is still definitely an issue. And the newest layer to that is the toll that the pandemic has taken on teachers and trying to keep them in the classrooms.
Years of dedicated work, though, the difference for DPS. Anusha, thank you so much. To pipelines of a different sort, Colorado's oil and gas operations, they self-report their methane emissions. What gets out when it shouldn't? The state health department is now looking over their shoulder, looking over their everything, actually, by flying over in planes to check those emissions. CDPHE flew on Monday and on Thursday this week. They used infrared sensors to map methane plumes. They're going to do 6 more flights inside the green square there, centered around Greeley. It includes areas in Boulder County, Weld County, and Larimer County. The department says those flights will gather data on methane emissions before they do a bigger aerial study in the fall. Health Department's also going to look at other emissions in that larger study, and their findings will guide regulations as they compare their readings to what's self-reported from energy companies. The state is funding those aerial surveys with settlement money from Anadarko, Kerr-McGee, from the 2017 explosion in Firestone that killed 2 people. That explosion was blamed on an underground pipeline that had been cut off but was still leaking gas. Tonight's next question comes from Patricia. She's new to town and wondered about Denver Water's plans to expand Gross Reservoir. Patricia wanted to know about the drought's impact on the expansion, whether Denver Water will be able to come up with the extra snowmelt to fill a bigger reservoir. Patricia, Denver Water tells us that it is confident because that water is going to fall on the west side of the Continental Divide, the part of Colorado that is in devastating drought, at which point that water will be diverted to the east side of the Continental Divide to enlarge Gross Reservoir. Denver Water says there's an agreement that says that this is the last time that they can expand Gross Reservoir with one of those trans-mountain diversions. Same agreement that also keeps Denver Water from growing to include more of Denver's suburbs. Future growth in water needs, Denver Water says, is going to be from density within their existing geographic territory, so-called vertical growth.
This is the last West Slope diversion Denver Water is going to have in that agreement. And second, the agreement itself makes a commitment to our partners on the West Slope that Denver Water is not going to grow. We have a boundary that is set from the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement, and we certainly expect more growth, but it's going to be vertical. Our geographical region is set.
Patricia was curious about this because we were talking this week how Denver Water is suing Boulder County, accusing Boulder County leaders of slow walking their permits needed to expand that reservoir. She got a bit more than 51% of Coloradans who are considered fully vaccinated against COVID-19 right now. New vaccinations in our state have slowed to a crawl. That's what we've seen across the country as well. And there are hospitals and hotspots outside Colorado that are beginning to get more crowded with unvaccinated people getting sick. Our director of reporting, Chris Vanderveen, is back for another one of our COVID chats. It's not that I don't enjoy your company, but I hope that we wouldn't do this again.
Here we are.
COVID cases are rising. Delta variant has taken over in Colorado in terms of the cases that we're seeing. So I want to look at the picture. The CDC's director says this is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated. When does that become a problem for the vaccinated?
I think it's already becoming a bit of a problem for the vaccinated. You're going to hear a lot more about people who have been vaccinated, sort of wondering what more are they going to have to do to sort of address this, and seeing that a number of their neighbors, a number of people that they know, a number of people that they don't know have not been vaccinated. I think that's going to lead to some more disagreement. We've seen some of that over the last few months.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get a little worse as we go along.
America does not need more tension between neighbors. You know, I mean, we have the Delta variant, which is now dominant in Colorado's cases. They call it Delta. It came out of India because India had an unchecked COVID situation. The good news is Delta is responding to the vaccine, so the vaccines do well against Delta. But there's the potential that the next variant might be able to poke through our vaccine protection a little bit better. And what worries me is that variant is the Missouri variant or the Florida variant or something like that, that not only is it a health crisis, but it also becomes a societal crisis.
Yes, and you have to wait and see in terms of what happens. Right now, the Colorado Hospital Association says that the Delta variant isn't making people more sick. It is putting more people into the hospital right now because of the unvaccinated population that is getting sick. And pockets of Colorado are starting to see some of those rises. But really the question is, what comes next? And where does that come from? I'm a little bit more worried about not in the United States. I know it's common for us in the United States to sort of look at Florida or Missouri or Arkansas or Mississippi and say that could be an area where a variant could come from. The chances are much greater that a variant's going to come from a country that has unchecked spread with 10% vaccinated population, 5% vaccinated population. That's where you're going to see some of those variants of concern really start to rise up.
My full conversation with Chris Vanderveen, where we also look at increased COVID restrictions in California and whether that could be Colorado soon. You'll find all of it on the next YouTube channel. Your Word of Thanks microgiving project this week has doubled the impact, or soon will, of Showers for All. That's a nonprofit project that offers free showers and free laundry service to people living on the streets of Denver. Showers for All had hoped to raise $45,000 to build a second one of its shower and laundry trailers, and you all raised that in 90 minutes. You have now raised almost $70,000 at this point. The Showers for All had been totally volunteer run, and they told me that they plan to use your extra donations on and beyond the new trailer to buy supplies for their trailers and also to help cover the cost of their first ever employee to manage those trailers and to train volunteers. Showers for All guests have talked about how they were able to confidently walk into a job interview after a shower and a change of clothes and then come out with a job offer, how they've been able to better manage their health conditions by cleaning off. Nonprofit told me that they had a visitor today who told them that he had been bathing in a creek lately, came out of the shower and said, "I can see myself again." That is the impact in our community that you have doubled this week, and then some. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 if you want to jump in with me and a bunch of other Next viewers in supporting Showers for All. Small nonprofit that helps some of our neighbors take a small but very important step toward having a better life.
Black Americans help shape Colorado. They deserve better than to be forgotten. A plan to fix that. And we'll have the update you requested on what happened to the much-loved woodpile from the old home studio. Things have gotten chippy, and now it's ready to head out in the mail to a whole bunch of you. Next.
Do you know the name Dr. Justina Ford? No shame if you don't. Allowing more people to learn about the leading Black Americans in the West is the work of 2 museums in Colorado. 2 museums now getting a financial boost to put those names in front of more people. Our Byron Reed has the story.
When you look at the former home of Dr. Justina Ford,
who was the first licensed Black female physician here in Colorado,
you see a part of history that was almost forgotten.
The building originally was at 23rd and Arapahoe and was slated for demolition several years after her death.
Daphne Rice Allen is chair of the board for the Black American West Museum and Heritage Center, which is now based in Dr. Ford's home. Recently, the group found out they're receiving a grant for $50,000, part of a $3 million fund that was awarded to 40 sites and organizations around the country from the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
The funds that we received are going towards governance, training, board development, expansion.
For the past 4 years, the National Trust has funded 105 sites to help preserve Black history.
In Colorado, we have this incredibly rich Black heritage throughout the state.
Dawn DePrince is the Chief Operating Officer for History Colorado, the second group in the state to receive money from the fund.
And I think one of the things that is really surprising to people across the country is that there is such an incredible, rich Black history in the American West.
The museum is planning to create a statewide African American heritage trail that will include virtual reality markers through a phone app in historic Black destinations.
It's a really great way to help us tell stories that haven't always been told, and to bring, new knowledge to people and understanding, all of the rich diversity that is Colorado.
Both agree the funds for preservation are important.
We're taking the museum to that next level.
For people to remember the rich history of Blacks in the West.
It just feels good to be able to finally get recognition for being a viable museum in the community.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
Warm and dry today with a bit of smoke and haze, isolated showers tonight. Temperatures running a little above average, and the low 90 trend that will continue into the weekend. High pressure will push the storm track to the north, allowing only limited moisture in for storms. So the isolated storms move from the northwest to the southeast and out tonight, and then we see that same redevelopment tomorrow afternoon. Partly cloudy, 62 in the city. Tomorrow, a hot high back in the low 90s. 20% chance of thunderstorms late in the day, and then low 90s for Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday with limited moisture for afternoon storms. Enjoy your weekend.
A bunch of you who generously donated to our first anniversary Word of Thanks campaign have been asking lately about the tokens of appreciation made from my home woodpile. So great news, we are done making them and we will be able to mail them out before too long. You want to look? So the woodworker who carefully sliced up the weirdly famous woodpile from the home studio was able to make 1,600 tokens of appreciation. I signed each, which took about 6 hours, who's counting, and then our team stamped each one with a Next logo. There are also collector's editions. There's one Marshall, one Anusha, and one Steve. I'm working with the nonprofit that you generously supported, Warren Village, so that we can mail out those tokens of appreciation to donors. And when we run out of tokens, and we will run out of those 1,600 because so many of you donated, I'll be sending signed thank you notes your way.
Every Friday, you open up about the beautiful things in your life. This week, in a beautiful spot.
I've had a grandmother name picked out for 6 years.
So it's good news that she can finally use that.
We'll stop and smell the lavender and hear some good news next. Science shows that lavender is truly relaxing. It's not just in our heads. So settle back. Let your blood pressure drop with a trip out to Chatfield Farms for the 256th edition of your Friday Good News.
It's a beautiful day. It's sunny here in Colorado.
Well, they're going to have the Lavender Festival.
And I mean, take a look at that.
We have over 2,000 lavender plants in bloom right now, so they actually come back every single year. You don't want to overwater your lavender. That's the easiest way to kill it. It is good news because lavender is very calming. It's very beautiful.
My good news is that I just got a new job and I'm so happy for that. Helping families who have kids with IDD. I know most of these families, they need resources, and I'm happy because I'm gonna be able to help them.
The hummingbirds are here. It reaffirms life.
And they're just lovely little birds, and they're in and out, and it shows you that all the flowers are blooming. They don't really come till the flowers bloom, and you look around, it's just as fabulous.
I'm not good at this. It does smell like purple.
Our immediate good news is that we're grandparents for the first time.
We just didn't know if it would ever happen. I've had a grandmother name picked out for 6 years.
So it's good news that she can finally use that.
It's a happy place for many people.
Yeah, it's a lovely
people
place.
Of all ages. It's a happy place.
Very happy grandmother in waiting. Festival Saturday, 10 to 6 at Botanic Gardens, Chatfield Farms. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a crew that I am convinced we have seen here before. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a parent and pet household exploring Denver every way they can. I'm not sure what's more impressive, the 4 dogs all staying on the paddleboard at City Park, or the guy doing the paddling with the dogs on there. Hey, that's Joe. That's Joe Hendricks. He's the guy who draws stares and smiles all over town. You remember his crew? They were out at Rail Yard Dog Park downtown. We introduced you in 2018. They got that special trailer. I feel like everybody in town has seen them. Joe tells us dogs took to the paddleboard thing pretty quick. They've been doing that for a few weeks at City Park. So next time you see him in the trailer or on the paddleboard, don't stare. Just be like, what's up, Joe? Melissa writes in, oh, great. Back to masks indoors thanks to the unvaccinated. I like France's approach, she says. France is requiring vaccine, antibody test, or a negative test before you fly, get on a train, go to a restaurant, go to a shopping mall. Chris Vanderveen was saying in our extended conversation on YouTube, look for American businesses, not government, to lead the way on those mandates. We'll see you next time.